Welcome to Midnight Casebook, where every shadow hides a secret and every mystery begs to be solved. Tonight, we unravel the chilling tale of Father Brown and Why Did Father Brown Lie? A fan-made story paying homage to the brilliance of G.K. Chesterton's legendary detective. We'd love to have you along for this enigmatic journey. Drop a comment to let us know where you're watching from, share your theories, and if you spot any inconsistencies, don't hesitate to call them out. Your keen eyes and sharp minds help us craft even more captivating mysteries in the future. Chapter 1. A Sinister Discovery. The dawn light painted Kembleford in muted shades of gold and grey, the mist clinging to the cobbled streets like a shroud over the secrets of its inhabitants. As villagers began to stir, the quaint facade of the St. Mary's Church loomed ominously against the brooding sky, a silent witness to the calm before the storm that was about to sweep through their lives. Father Brown had only just made his way to the front steps of the church when a piercing scream shattered the peace of the morning. The sound echoed and then fell flat, replaced by an eerie hush. Heart racing, he hurried toward the sound, his mind racing with apprehension. Upon reaching the churchyard, he found Mrs. Beddoes, a well-respected member of the parish, whose teary eyes told him all he needed to know. "Father, it's dreadful," she gasped, clutching her shawl. "What has happened, Mrs. Beddoes?" His voice was steady, though his heart thudded with urgency. "Inside, it's Mr. Pritchard. He's—" Her voice cracked, the weight of her words hanging heavily in the brisk air. Pritchard was not just any parishioner. He was a man of significant influence in Kembleford, known for his geniality and unwavering commitment to the church. Father Brown's brow furrowed. "In the church?" "Yes, but it's locked. Someone must have—" Dismissing her words, Father Brown rushed inside, forcing the heavy oak door with a creak that sounded more like a lament. What he saw threw him back a step. Mr. Pritchard lay sprawled at the altar, the morning light glistening on the polished wood, starkly contrasting the lifelessness of his form. A crimson stain blossomed across his chest, forming sinister petals against the weathered stone. Father Brown knelt beside the body, his eyes sweeping the scene. Pritchard's face was set in a grimace of surprise. It was a detail the father found both unsettling, yet intriguingly revealing. Death had come swiftly. The knife wound, he noted with unsettling clarity, was clean and precise. Who could— His thoughts were interrupted by the arrival of Constable Collins, whose face mirrored the shock of the discovery. "Father Brown, you shouldn't be here," Collins stammered, a mix of horror and authority in his posture. "I've seen enough. We must consider how he was killed here, in a locked church." Father Brown's gaze turned sharp. "And then I need to know who was last seen with him." "Everyone in the village loved Mr. Pritchard, Father," the constable protested. "Who would want to harm him?" A question echoed ominously, and whispers began to swirl in Father Brown's mind, echoing among the villagers gathered outside who looked anxiously through the heavy doors. "Were there any visitors to the church last night?" he asked, his voice steady despite the tempest of deep thoughts swirling within. Collins shook his head. "No one. I locked it myself last evening, after the prayer meeting." A furrow of doubt crossed his brow. "But then how—" "Precisely." Father Brown leaned closer, observing the area around Pritchard's body. Beside the fallen man lay a small, intricately carved wooden box, its lid ajar. Hesitant, Brown picked it up. revealing a delicate silver cufflink inside, emblossomed with an unusual crest, an owl sitting atop a book. He frowned. An emblem of scholars, perhaps? It is worth investigating. Collins looked confused, scratching the back of his head. What does it have to do with anything, Father? It tells us much about who was near him. Pritchard maintained a penchant for the intellectual. He often mingled with the likes of Lord Pembroke, whose family has a similar crest. Father Brown paused, recalling their last parish meeting. But also with Miss Edwina Hartwell. She hasn't been seen this morning, I noticed. Just then, the solemn figure of Lady Pembroke emerged from the gathering crowd, her demeanour commanding respect. Father Brown, I must speak with you, she said, her voice low and tense. Is it true about Mr. Pritchard? Has something— Forgive me, Lady Pembroke, we do not— But before he could finish, she stepped closer, her gaze flicking between the body and the cufflink in Brown's hand. His cufflink, she whispered, fear flashing in her eyes. That should not be here. Father Brown felt the fabric of intrigue wrap around the scene, tightening. The thought of betrayal whispered through the air as Lady Pembroke's gaze hardened. It cannot be. My husband would never— We had our quarrels, but— Yet quarrels can ignite the deadliest of motives. Wouldn't you agree? Father Brown interjected, his tone not accusatory, but thoughtful, searching her expression for truth. For a moment, everything stood still. The air thickened with an unspoken tension. The gathered villagers traded anxious glances, their speculations brewing an organic fear that was palpably rising. A low murmur erupted, pulling Father Brown's focus back to the mysterious cufflink. Who had been near Pritchard last and might have reason for a fierce altercation? The pieces were slowly aligning, yet the truth remained shrouded in darkness. As the sun lifted, silhouetting the figure of the church and illuminating secrets hidden among its shadows, the father felt a sudden rush of foreboding. It was too quiet around them, each villager holding their breath, teetering on the edge of unspoken dread. Suddenly, a sharp clatter echoed, louder than any whisper, a shattering murmur derivative of despair. The church vault, it's open, someone stammered, sending shockwaves across the crowd. What could be in there? Lady Pembroke whispered, her fingers clutching the edge of her shawl, panic etched on her face. Father Brown felt the twisting knot of mystery tighten further. The door to the vault creaked ominously, revealing shadows deeper than mere darkness. And within that vault, treasures of faith mingled with shadows of human betrayal awaited discovery, drawing him into a truth he could scarcely fathom. As he turned towards the open door, one thought crystallized in his mind. Everything was about to change. Chapter 2. Whispers in the Shadows. The anguished cries outside the Wheatsheaf pub pierced the stillness of Kembleford like a dagger through mist. Father Brown, still grappling with the grim reality of Mr. Pritchard's murder, turned instinctively toward the source of the tumult. He hurriedly stepped from the churchyard, the heavy door echoing shut behind him, and made his way through the village square, where the early morning fog lingered beneath the glow of the rising sun. As he approached the pub, fierce voices clashed, like swords drawing from their sheaths. You've always been jealous, Albert. Just because Pritchard was favoured by the vicar, it doesn't give you the right to speak ill of the dead. Favour? Oh, please. He was a charlatan, a gifter of false hope. The rough voice belonged to a stocky man with grease-stained hands, standing in the shadow of the pub's awning. It was Albert Finch, the village carpenter, known for his blunt opinions and fondness for ale. Now that he's Gone, maybe we'll see some real changes around here. Father Brown, threading through clusters of villagers watching the escalating argument, caught sight of Timothy Turner, the wiry innkeeper, his brow creased in worry, shuffling at the entrance. You really ought to cease this now, Albert. It's dishonorable to speak thus of the deceased, he urged, glancing warily towards the crowd that had begun to gather. Dishonorable? Dishonor is what you lot paid him in life. He took, and what did we get? Nothing but his blasted cufflinks, Finch shouted, his voice rising above the murmurs of the crowd. Something dangerous flickered in his eyes, battling between anger and something more primal. Father Brown inhaled deeply, deciphering the veiled tensions that seeped beneath the surface of the seemingly quaint village. Pritchard's death had unleashed a storm of grievance that had long simmered beneath the placid exterior of Kembleford. "What cufflinks?" he questioned aloud, stepping closer. Finch turned, startled by the presence of the priest. "The fools still speak of him as if he were a saint. Mr. Pritchard, he was only a man, and a deceitful one at that. The cufflink was one he left behind, a trinket of arrogance. The villagers should be celebrating his departure instead of wallowing in grief." The priest's mind whirred, piecing together connections. "It seems you carry a profound resentment towards Mr. Pritchard, Albert. Yet here we have him murdered. And you were among the last to argue with him, were you not?" Finch hesitated, shifting his weight uncomfortably. "I didn't harm him. All I said was the truth, and no one likes hearing it." A gasp rose from a group of women nearby, casting glittering eyes towards Finch. "Oh, the shame of it," one whispered to another, fanning herself as though the very air had turned hot with scandal. Before Father Brown could probe further, a sharp voice interjected from the periphery. Edwina Hartwell, her demeanor, composed, yet eyes alight with anger. "Shame? You bring shame upon yourself, Finch. Look at you, barking accusations while the man lies cold in his grave. You and your petty grudges, just because he rejected your proposal to join the parish council." At this, Finch's face darkened. "And you'd defend him? He was nothing more than a self-appointed king in this backward village." "Enough!" Father Brown raised his voice, silencing the strife that threatened to drown reason. The weight of the moment hung heavily in the air, thick with suspicions and half-truths. All eyes turned to him, expecting clarity in a sea of confusion. "What did Mr. Pritchard know about you, Finch?" Finch looked taken back, but found his voice. "Only that I wanted opportunities for everyone, not just those who bask in his glow." "Opportunities? And envy? You're saying he rejected you for counsel, and that leaves a man bitter. What else could you stand to lose?" Without answering, Finch exuded an air of retreat, stepping back into the shadows of the wall as the murmurs began to swell once again. The tension was palpable, nearly crackling in the fog-drenched air. "Father, I think we should—" Turner hesitated, looking worriedly between Brown and Finch. "People are starting to stare. It's becoming rather unseemly." Father Brown settled his gaze beyond the confrontation, focusing on the half-open door of the wheat sheaf, where whispers mingled with the aroma of bitter ale. He quickly recalled the cufflink he'd found beside Mr. Pritchard's body. "Who last saw Mr. Pritchard last night besides Finch?" he asked, his voice mild yet unwavering. Finch began, but Lady Pembroke's elegant figure materialized from the gathering, her voice soothing but tense. "The night was rather quiet, wasn't it?" "I was at home after the meeting." She cast a quick glance at Brown, whose understanding grew deeper. "Then is it fair to say, Lady Pembroke, that your husband had no reason to seek Mr. Pritchard later that evening?" Her lips pursed, and her posture stiffened. Henry had no part in this. It was business, nothing more, and completely devoid of malice. Dread seeped into her tone, something flickering behind the composed facade. "But business can incite malice, Lady Pembroke," Finch intervened, bitterness slicing his words. "Your honourable husband sought what Pritchard had, the respect of Kembleford." "Enough," Father Brown interjected. "Each word becomes another thread in the growing tapestry of mystery before us, and hidden beneath it lies desperation and perhaps guilt." The villagers murmured anew as tension pulsed like a live wire. Father Brown's heart quickened. Something lay beneath those tensions, thick as fog. He had no doubt. The discussion had unearthed issues long festering within Kembleford. Then, a quick flicker of movement caught his eye at the edge of the pub, a shadow darting away, too fleet to recognize. Father Brown's instinct urged him to follow, but not before arching an eyebrow back at Finch and Pembroke, now locked in a simmering contest of wills. "I need to know where your loyalties lie, and whether those you align with have anything more to lose. Secrets often dwell much deeper than surface feuds." As Finch shuffled away, Father Brown felt the rising winds of fate howl through the village. The faintest echo of whispered suspicions had surfaced, under layers of grief, envy, and passion. Darkness coiled tightly, and soon he would pry it loose. The crowd began, filtering back towards the pub, the argument dwindling into wary exchanges and speculative glances. But just as they turned, a horrifying realization gripped Father Brown. He had not seen Edwina depart. Had she slipped away into the depths of shadows, or remained within, seeking another opportunity to weave her own story amidst the chaos? Thoughts swirled chaotically as he prepared himself to unveil the threads of this web. With determination guiding him, he stepped into the pub, casting a discerning glance across faces where whispers stirred with secrets yet to be revealed. What was lost in the shadows would soon surface, but he felt the gnawing urgency of his own desires for truth. As questions ripened into darker possibilities, it was clear that he was not merely seeking answers. He was at the precipice of a game far more perilous than mere mortal gossip. The next truths were waiting to be uncovered, and their discovery promised to fray the very edges of what the villagers thought they knew. Chapter 3. The Missing Will. A heavy mist clung to Kembleford, tender fingers of fog winding through the churchyard as dawn broke. The shadows that lingered in the alleys between weathered cottages spoke of secrets yet untold. Father Brown made his way towards the residence of Mr. Pritchard, the deceased, where the villagers had gathered, their voices distrustful whispers curling like smoke in the early light. A sudden commotion erupted from within the manor, a discordant melody of raised voices, wrought with confusion and accusation. "The will is missing," Timothy Turner, the innkeeper, declared, his face pale and his brow lined with distress. "How could it have vanished? It was right here in the study." Father Brown stepped forward, the gravity of the situation settling upon his shoulders like a heavy mantle. The implications of a missing will transformed the atmosphere. The collective breath of the villagers hitched as they shared furtive glances. This was no longer just a murder case. It was the unraveling of lives tethered to the late Mr. Pritchard's estate. Who was aware of its whereabouts? Father Brown inquired, his tone steady but urgent, glancing at the gathered faces that reflected a haunting mix of apprehension and greed. Lady Pembroke stood apart from the throng, her expression torn between outrage at the violation of her late husband's privacy and the tang of fear that swirled unbidden in her belly. Surely you can't suspect anyone here, Father. We are all grieving together. Yet mourning can stir motives as easily as a breeze stirs leaves, he replied gently but resolutely. There will be some amongst us who wish to see it mislaid or erased. Wasn't it merely a formality? Piped in Albert Finch, clenching a pint glass as if it could anchor him to the truth. The man had no close family, no heirs. Besides, it wasn't like Pritchard was known to be generous with his possessions. Father Brown's keen eyes did not miss the flash of resentment in Finch's stance. The carpenter loomed larger, emboldened by the notion that Mr. Pritchard's chaos could create order anew. He was a chiseler. Perhaps someone finally got tired of his games. That is quite a leap, Finch, Father Brown replied evenly. Tell me, did anyone else see the will before it went missing? If it was secured in the study, who had access? Shadows flickered across Lady Pembroke's face as she took a step forward, her voice trembling slightly. I left it in the drawer, alongside his other papers, before the... She hesitated, a breath catching as though the very word death was too raw to utter. Murder. A steady pulse of energy coursed through the crowd as eyes turned to one another, distrust born anew. Before the murder, Father Brown echoed thoughtfully. And did you see anyone near that drawer recently? Mr. Pritchard mentioned a few meetings before his passing. Timothy's face strained under the weight of his own knowledge as he exchanged a glance with Lady Pembroke. He received a letter the day before, Timothy ventured cautiously. Something about business dealings. That's when he first brought up the idea of a will to ensure his affairs were in order. A letter? Father Brown's ears perked. Do you happen to know the sender? Knowing him, it could have been anyone, Timothy muttered, eyes darting to Finch, who had taken a step closer, preparing to deliver his pointed opinion. But he was in quite a state during our meeting at the pub. But it was Lady Pembroke's expression, clouded with something darker, that beckoned Father Brown's attention. You clearly are as much in the fold as anyone here, Lady Pembroke. What was it? Did you have input into his will? The tension among the villagers thickened, each face a canvas of private thoughts, unvoiced speculations. It was always Pritchard's belief that one should keep their business separate from personal ties, she retorted, her voice tight. He would have left funds to the church or to the village, you know that about him. Or to someone close, Finch interjected, a smirk creeping upon his lips. Fancy that. Lady Pembroke could stand to inherit substantial influence if Pritchard favoured it. You jest, Finch, she snapped, frustration and indignation igniting her tone. The undertow of their bickering rendered Father Brown determined to find clarity beneath the dense fog of conjecture. If the will is removed from the estate's foundation, someone must have a powerful incentive to conceal it. Speak plainly. Who here stands to gain if that will were lost? Silence swallowed the room. Only the distant toll of a bell breaking through the miasma of suspicion. A fleeting shadow darted past the open doors of the study, drawing Father Brown's attention to a flicker of movement outside, someone just beyond the threshold. Hold on, he urged, crossing the threshold toward the open door where whispers of the unsaid danced just beyond. Yet, as he reached the edge of the manor's staircase, Lady Pembroke squirmed. What are you doing, Father? Are we to accuse one another now? No, my lady, but simply to unravel what lies hidden beneath the simple facade. Just outside by the hedgerow, he caught sight of the figure, Edwina Hartwell clutching something tightly against her chest. The realization hit him with an electric jolt. She had positioned herself to eavesdrop unseen, her body tense, as though the edge of conflict stirred her very bones. "Edwina," Father Brown called, his voice breaking the tension as he confronted her. She turned sharply, as if caught stealing treasures from the night. But the flash of a letter slipped from her hand, fluttering to the ground like a dying leaf, a scrap of parchment that bore the signature of Mr. Pritchard. The lines of ink swirled like mist, beckoning to be read, a remnant of the mystery that enveloped them all. "Father, Edwina began, her fortitude slipping beneath the weight of unworthiness. But the glimmer of the hidden will, bloodied by desecration, invoked a dizzying sense of urgency within Father Brown. What had she unearthed from the depths? He bent to retrieve it, heart racing, as a darker secret unfurled with every moment. "Just what have you got there, Edwina?" As he held the folds of the parchment delicately, echoes of its implications clawed against the heart of the gathering as all eyes turned to him, laden with anticipation for the answers that would shape their futures, and perhaps reveal something far more sinister behind Mr. Pritchard's death. The next chapter loomed like a storm, and Father Brown could feel fate coiling tighter yet. Chapter 4. The Uninvited Guest. A chill ran through the churchyard of Kembleford as Father Brown stepped out into the mist-laden dawn, the damp air heavy with anticipation and the lingering scent of earth. The previous day's events buzzed in his mind. A murder, a missing will, and now a letter in Edwina's hand that hinted at deeper shadows. Yet it was a crack of distant thunder that brought him crashing back to the present, its rumble a portent of the turmoil about to engender. As he made his way toward the villagers gathered outside the manor, a stranger emerged from the obscuring fog. The newcomer's silhouette was imposing, a tall figure cloaked in a long, dark coat that billowed slightly with each brisk stride, seemingly pulled from the very folds of mystery itself. Father Brown felt the air thicken, a sudden unease sprouting like weeds in a well-tended garden. The stranger appeared neither lost nor wandering. Instead, he walked with purpose, headed directly towards the manor, where the atmosphere already brimmed with mistrust. "Who is that?" muttered Timothy Turner, the innkeeper, as Father Brown approached the growing assembly. "He arrived not moments ago without a word," replied Lady Pembroke, her brow furrowed as she tilted her head, observing the man through narrowed eyes. "His very presence sends shivers down my spine." Father Brown's instinctive wariness deepened. Might we have an idea of his intent? Or better yet, a name? The villagers exchanged wary looks, but as the stranger neared, the air of uncertainty clung to them like a shroud. Father Brown stepped forward, raising a brow to draw the stranger's attention. "Good morning to you, sir. What brings you to Kembleford on such a dismal day?" The man produced a thin smile, albeit one that did not quite reach his steely blue eyes. "I am Archibald Feathers, an acquaintance of Mr. Pritchard. I received word of his unfortunate demise, and filled with curiosity and concern, have come to pay my respects." "An acquaintance?" Finch cut in, skepticism laced within his tone. "Since when did Mr. Pritchard play host to unfamiliar faces?" "I suggest you temper your assumptions, Mr. Finch," Father Brown interjected sharply, his gaze shifting rapidly between the stranger and the carpenter. "Let us all refrain from casting unwarranted stones upon an innocent arrival." Lady Pembroke crossed her arms defensively. "If he claims to know Pritchard, then surely he ought to prove it." Indeed, Father Brown encouraged, a steady curiosity igniting within him. "Mr. Feathers, if you would, A detail or two about your association with Mr. Pritchard might assuage the villagers' suspicions. A tension crackled in the air as the stranger's gaze darted to the gathered faces, then back to Father Brown. It was largely of business. We shared a mutual interest in land investment. Pritchard was reluctant to relinquish opportunities, but sadly, time was not on his side. A beneficial arrangement indeed, Father Brown replied smoothly, though an inclination of skepticism flickered in his mind. What of the will? Surely you were aware of any discussions regarding his estate? Feathers hesitated, glancing toward the manor's grand entrance before continuing. Only in passing. He once mentioned drafting a will, assuring me it was a formality, though I sensed he desired to keep most affairs close to the vest. Lady Pembroke's lips pursed as she absorbed this information. And conveniently enough, it is now missing. How very questionable that you arrive at this hour, when all is in disarray. Do spare the theatrics, my lady, Feathers snapped. I am but a seeker of answers as much as you are. The sudden clash of voices buzzed like wasps around them, but Father Brown remained centered, pondering the implications of this interloper. Why had he come so deliberately? Surely he, of all people, would know better than to step uninvited into the tempest that was Mr. Pritchard's death. Hold a moment, Father Brown said, raising his hand as he saw Finch grasp a shard of the broken glass that lay on the pub's floor just moments before. Are you suggesting that something might link you to Pritchard's death? Am I to be accused based on the weight of conjecture? I hardly think that's fair, Feathers protested, his face reddening. In that moment, the clouds overhead parted, revealing a fleeting sliver of light that struck upon an object at the corner of the churchyard, hidden beneath some damp leaves and bramble. It gleamed faintly, piquing Father Brown's interest. "Excuse me," he murmured, edging away from the thickening contention, while his mind turned about the possibilities that spun like whirling autumn leaves. As he knelt to examine what seemed to be an old silver-plated locket, its age weathered yet enigmatic, he noticed the initials engraved upon it, partly obscured, but discernibly reading E.H. His heart raced as he recalled a singular account connected to Edwina. Hartwell. Edwina, he muttered under his breath, his focus narrowing on the locket as he held it aloft for the gathering to see. A sudden shudder rippled through the crowd, and Finch seemed to act before thought. "You cannot possibly suggest it could belong to her," he barked, a flash of mischief in his eyes. "All the more reason to warrant suspicion when placing her amidst this unfolding treachery." "That may be true, but consider this." Father Brown turned toward the impending storm brewing in the heart of the discussion, a nexus peppered with doubt and possibility. If this locket ties back to Edwina, we must ascertain how it found its way here, and who else may have wanted to conceal truths connected to her. He glanced up to see Edwina approaching from the fringes of the crowd, her expression betraying a potent mix of fear and defiance as she faced the gathering. "Father," she called softly, "what have you found?" The weight of her gaze bore into him as realization dawned. "Father." Brown's voice drew the moment taut. "This locket might be the key we seek in unraveling Mr. Pritchard's demise, but we must establish what you know. The timing of your presence, after all, could prove fortuitous or treacherous." The air thickened with the silence that followed, pregnant with truth, hanging just beyond their grasp. Father Brown took a step toward Edwina, ready to unveil the labyrinthine ties of their entangled fates, but as he spoke, a low rumble of thunder pulsed across the sky, echoing the silence of shared secrets poised on the brink of revelation. The uninvited guest had only just begun to unfurl a tale woven with loss, and only in the gathering storm would they uncover how deeply interconnected they all truly were. Chapter 5. Clues Hidden in Plain Sight. A heavy mist blanketed the village of Kembleford, swirling through the narrow streets like a whisper carrying secrets unspoken. Father Brown paused at the heavy oaken door of the manor, its surface damp with the night's chill. He could feel apprehension hanging in the air. The unresolved tension of recent events clung to the walls, echoing his own anticipation. Resolutely, he stepped inside, the creak of the door protesting against the stillness, and he was met by the anxious faces gathered in the drawing room. The atmosphere was electric, thick with unvoiced allegations. "We must take a step back," he called, his voice steady. "We are lost in this web of suspicion, and yet I feel we are close to something vital." He noticed Edwina Hartwell's gaze, darting restlessly, her fingers wringing the folds of her dress, betraying a blend of anxiety and guilt. Meanwhile, at the other end of the room, Finch paced like a caged animal, his eyes wild with suppressed rage. "Close to what, Father?" Finch sneered, his tone dripping with derision. "More riddles hidden behind your cryptic words?" Father Brown chose not to engage. Instead, he directed his observation to a glass perched precariously on the mantel, half filled with dark red wine. The surface shimmered in the flickering candlelight, as if whispering of diverse intentions hidden beneath its surface. "Might we examine this glass, my friends?" he suggested, mindful that each detail in the room held a piece of the puzzle. "What relevance does a glass have to the murder of Mr. Pritchard?" Lady Pembroke demanded, crossing her arms defensively. "Surely you jest?" "Perhaps," Father Brown said, glancing knowingly at her. "But allow me to surmise. Who last held this glass?" He bent closer, inspecting the rim where a faint smudge marred the otherwise polished surface. "Is it not curious that it bears a fingerprint distinct from Mr. Pritchard's? Misdirection lies in each detail, overlooked." A collective gasp echoed through the room, eyes darting about the ancient walls, as if hidden truths might materialize from the wallpaper itself. "It could be anyone's. We mustn't assume," Edwina interjected, her voice trembling with urgency. "True, but consider this, dear Edwina," Father Brown mused, rising again to his full height, the glint of reason softening his expression. "These affairs of the heart and mind seldom thrive outside the bounds of emotion." He paused, letting the tension knit tighter. "Look closely, for fingerprints offer us insight into intentions far beyond mere evidence." "Then let us examine those present," Finch interjected, waving a hand dismissively. "What else do you deduce?" Before Father Brown could retort, Lady Pembroke stepped forward, her expression earnest yet conspiratorial. "I recall a letter Mr. Pritchard received just days before his death. It was misplaced in the library. Something about an impending partnership fraught with the threat of betrayal." "A misplaced letter, you say?" Father Brown's brow furrowed with intrigue. "Interesting. Might it not still be retrievable?" As the group moved to the sprawling library, the scent of old paper and polished wood wrapped around them like a comforting embrace. Father Brown's insatiable curiosity preceded him. He knelt beside a stack of books, keen to examine each work with the meticulous care of a surgeon. As he shifted the tomes, a folded parchment slipped from a hollow within a larger volume, fluttering to the ground like a taunting spectre. "Look here," he said, unfurling it with fingers that danced delicately across the paper. "It bears the unmistakable hand of Mr. Pritchard." His eyes narrowed at the scrawled words, revealing a plea for discretion based on a possible partnership with— "Ah, here it is," he murmured, barely containing his excitement. "Archibald Feathers." A palpable air of disbelief enveloped the room. Could it be that Mr. Feathers held designs upon the estate? Lady Pembroke asked, her demeanor shifting from disdain to interest. Finch's voice dripped with sarcasm. "Why should we believe any of this? It's merely an old letter." "True," Father Brown conceded, "but a letter can contain a whisper of motive, and here our thoughts weave a tapestry of deception. If Feathers conspired, the motive could reside in monetary gain." He glanced meaningfully at Edwina. "The stakes of loyalty are often steep, are they not?" Edwina paled, her voice trembling as she countered, "I was never linked to Mr. Pritchard's business dealings. He was generous, but there was no entanglement." The facade of innocence began to crack before them, revealing a whirlwind of tumultuous emotion beneath. "Then why, dear lady," Finch challenged, stepping closer, "were you found lurking outside the manor the night of his death?" "Enough," rang Father Brown's voice, silencing the room with his outburst. "It is time we redirect our focus. Edwina may hold no culpability, but all present may possess specters dancing at the edges of memory." As tensions simmered, his intuition sparked. "Mayhap our answers lie on the other side of this mystery. What if Mr. Pritchard's death was a consequence of intertwining fortunes, a premonition of betrayal?" The gathering erupted with questions and sharp retorts, yet Father Brown remained fathomless in his focus. He recalled the locket discovered earlier, an object unmoored from its purpose. Its presence taunted him, a fragment calling toward clarity. "Do you know of any significant events tied to the initials intertwined upon that locket?" he inquired pointedly, addressing Edwina. "This may reveal more than you realize." The fading light streamed through the high windows, casting a halo around Edwina's uncertain countenance. "It belonged to my mother," she admitted, her resolve cracking. "But I don't know how it came to be there." Silence reigned in the room, stretched thin by the weight of impending revelations. Father Brown felt the final tendrils of their tangled threads coming together, yet even in clarity, darkness lingered at the edges. But before he could pursue the implications further, the quiet tension in the manor ruptured with a sharp knock reverberating through the door. As the gathering turned toward the sound, Father Brown's heart raced. Trouble was, and the storm they all feared stood at their threshold, awaiting revelation. The players of this deadly game were but a breath away from unveiling the truth, or perhaps plunging deeper into their own shadows. "Father," Edwina murmured, her gaze shifting anxiously toward the door. "Do you think—" Before she could finish, Father Brown turned, his intuition keen. "We must uncover the significance of their arrival, but brace yourselves. Those who hide the deepest truths may yet deceive us further." With that, the door swung open, revealing a figure cloaked in mystery once more, a catalyst for chaos amid the tangled machinations of fate. The cliffhanger proposed thrilling potential that insisted the truth would overpower any deception. The onset of a new chapter undoubtedly poised for explosive revelation. Chapter 6. Secrets of the Grand Estate. A chill hung in the air as Father Brown ascended the gravel path leading to Whitby Manor, its looming silhouette cutting sharply against the dawn sky like a sepulchre waiting to be pried open. The early morning mist wrapped itself around the grand estate, creating a ghostly veil that only added to the atmosphere of foreboding. He had received a letter from Lady Pembroke, filled with erratic scrawls and desperate pleas, hinting at family secrets that required his immediate attention. Upon entering the manor, the scent of polished wood and aging leather mingled with the faint aroma of wax candles. The interior, rich with heavy drapes and portrait-laden walls, felt like a museum. Yet, it was the unnerving silence that sent a ripple of unease skirting down Father Brown's spine. He took a moment, lingering in the grand foyer, where the echoes of his footsteps seemed almost sacrilegious in the stillness. Father Brown. A soft voice broke through the muted air, drawing him toward a side room. It was Edwina Hartwell, her face etched with worry, as if shadows had taken residence beneath her eyes. "Thank you for coming so quickly. I fear things are unraveling." "Unraveling indeed, Edwina," he replied, observing the tremble in her hands as she clasped them together. "You mentioned secrets. What lays beneath the polished surface of the Pembroke family?" Her eyes darted anxiously around the quiet corridor. "Lady Pembroke believes there are passages concealed within the estate, tunnels used by members of the family to escape their troubles or perhaps to carry out darker deeds." "Dark deeds?" Father Brown pressed, intrigued. "You speak with conviction, yet veiled in uncertainty. What is it that you fear?" "I overheard a conversation between Finch and Lady Pembroke last week," she murmured, her voice barely above a whisper. "There was talk of Mr. Pritchard, and a partnership that indicated betrayal. They convinced each other it was best to bury his memory, unless what?" Father Brown's focus sharpened as he beckoned her closer into the dim light of the room. "Unless they believed he had something worth exposing," she replied, her voice steadying with the gravity of the revelation. Father Brown's mind raced, weaving together the threads of suspicion that hung between them, knots of tension deepening with each passing moment. If Mr. Pritchard had knowledge of some family secret, it could indeed have made him a target. But let us not forget, motives of fear breed actions in the dark. Edwina looked to the foreboding walls, the atmosphere rich with a plethora of whispers surrounded by a history yet untouched. "Perhaps you should search for the passages she mentioned. In the library, there were books that seemed out of place. Lady Pembroke may have hidden something there." Dismissing an irrational impulse of dread, Father Brown nodded. "Let us investigate." In the library, he noticed the distinct scent of aging paper met with a hint of mustiness thick enough to shroud a suspect's absence. The shelves buckled under the weight of thick tomes, their titles hinting at an era long since past. Edwina hovered, watching as Father Brown's fingers glided over the spines, each one a different world, waiting to be opened. "Look," she pointed toward a section where books stood at odds with the rest, their bindings cracked, as if yanked frequently from their places. He approached the shelf, inspecting an ornate volume that revealed itself to be a family history. As he pored over the pages, an envelope slipped out and tumbled to the floor. "Ah, what do we have here?" Father Brown murmured, leaning to retrieve it. The parchment was yellowed and water-stained, but clearly marked with a delicate script. He opened it, revealing a letter stained with a dark smear, a faint hint of red caught in the flickering candlelight. "What is it, Father?" Edwina pressed, her eyes wide with intrigue. "The handwriting is distinct, one I've seen before," he murmured, his brow furrowing. "It's from Mr. Pritchard, but there is something else. I suspect it contains more than idle chatter. It references a meeting, a final agreement, where the phrase "whispers of the past shall lead to my end" is noted with an urgency that speaks of fear. Fear? Edwina echoed apprehensively. What could cause such a sentiment? Father Brown glanced at her, an unsettling realization dawning. It hints at a knowledge he possessed that could fracture them all. This secret, whatever it was, must hold weight. Her eyebrows knitted with concern. He must have known something worth killing for. Precisely. We need to uncover these hidden passages, for therein lies the truth. He felt a sudden turbulence in his gut. The fabric of the estate echoed with secrets that demanded unearthing. Father Brown moved toward a wall where shadows danced ominously as the sun dipped further, casting elongated silhouettes. If the passages exist, a connection to the estate's past might yield shackles too heavy for a single legacy to bear. Just as he traced along the wall's edge, a sharp creak pierced the silence, causing Father Brown to turn, his instincts honed like a cat's. A door swung open at the far end of the room, revealing Finch, soaked from the rain-drenched outside, with a wild look in his eyes. "Father Brown," Finch called, panting heavily, his presence stirring a sense of foreboding that rushed, unbidden, into Father Brown's thoughts. "You need to come. There's been another discovery." With bated breath, Edwina and Father Brown shared an electrifying glance before pivoting to Finch, whose gaze darted to the far end of the library. "What is it?" Brown asked, dread creeping between his shoulder blades. "The cellar," Finch said, breathlessly. "You must see what lies beneath." Father Brown felt the weight of destiny poised on a sharp edge as Finch gestured expansively. Each tick of time wound tighter, drawing them toward something perilous or perhaps illuminating. The unraveling of secrets seemed imminent, and deeper shadows beckoned. Each step could lead them closer to the truth or plunge them further into the depths of treachery. "Lead on then," Father Brown urged, a mix of anticipation and dread thrumming in his veins. As the three of them made their way down the narrow stairway into the unknown, the faint echo of whispers filled the air, foretelling the secrets, trapped like ghosts, waiting to emerge from their slumber. Chapter 7. The Confession of a Villager. The soft patter of rain punctuated the air as Father Brown stepped into the village of Kembleford, each droplet a harbinger of revelations yet to unfold. The crisp smell of wet earth mingled with the scent of wood smoke rising from the chimneys of stone cottages. Shadows stretched across the cobblestones, cloaking villagers galumphing about with quotidian routines. Yet beneath the mundane surface, attention trailed in the alleys like a spectre. Father Brown made his way toward the village square, heart racing with the weight of the discoveries yet to come. Word had spread like wildfire about Mr. Pritchard's unceremonious death, and though many had opinions, few held substance. A quickening of pace led him to the tavern, a favorite haunt of locals, and a treasure trove of gossip, where the benevolent glow of lanterns offered warmth from the encroaching chill. Inside, the clatter of mugs and the rich aroma of ale filled the atmosphere, vibrant but underwritten by an ominous hum. He spotted Farmer Carter, seated near the hearth, his countenance a tapestry of worry, fibered with secrets too long, suffocated beneath the rural calm. The man glanced furtively about, his stiff frame betraying the ease that ale typically bestowed. "Father Brown," he started, his voice cracking like dry twigs underfoot. I need to speak with you. It's about the night Pritchard died." "The night is where truths often slumber, Mr. Carter," Father Brown replied, hunching closer, his tone encouraging, guiding. "What is it that troubles you?" Carter ran a trembling hand over his grizzled beard, eyes shifting toward the door as if seeking a sign that they were indeed alone. "I've seen things, Father, things that rattle the bones, if I'm to be frank." He leaned closer, lowering his voice to a whisper that was unstable yet urgent. "I saw Mr. Pritchard with a stranger, a shadowy figure, just outside the manor, the night before he was found." "Interesting," Father Brown noted, curiosity piqued. "And what did this figure resemble, Mr. Carter? Was there anything about him that stood out?" "A dark, cloaked fellow. Hard to make out his face, but he held himself like a man with a knife hidden in his heart." Carter shuddered, the pressure of his confession weighing heavily. They looked engaged in a heated discussion. It was reckless, I will say. At one point, the fellow raised his hand to Pritchard, but I was too far to hear the words shared. The wheels in Father Brown's mind began turning. "And why, pray tell, did you not come forward sooner with this knowledge?" Carter swallowed hard, the corners of his mouth twisting in a grimace. "I feared what it might mean. Suffering might follow." Sweat beaded on Father Brown's brow as he leaned back, mulling over the implications of this revelation. Shadows danced along the tavern walls, and the ambience turned heavier, laden with dread, rather than levity. "What say you about your own dealings? With Mr. Pritchard, was there discord between you two?" Carter flinched, but steadied himself, fixating on the ever-burning hearth. He was a good landlord, but there were whispers about the land, about debts. A man can be favored, but still jilted, Father. "Indeed, Mr. Carter," Father Brown murmured, the gears of deduction clicking as stalks of information intertwined. "The very nature of loyalty can warp when mired in monetary obligations." Father Brown's sharp gaze struck Carter, who looked increasingly restless. "You fear this dark figure may return to exact punishment, do you not?" The priest's tone was steady, imbued with an understanding that reaffirmed their shared humanity. "Aye," Carter sighed, slumping his shoulders in defeat. "And I say what I know could unleash forces beyond comprehension." Before Father Brown could prod further, the raucous laughter of pubgoers burst through the tavern's stillness like a storm. Yet the intrusion did little to quell the air thickening with tension. The farmer's terror spread through the dimly lit alcove, igniting the priest's own alarm. "Do you remember anything more about this man?" Father Brown probed. "Any particular details?" "His cloak, dark as a raven's wing, but something glimmered within the folds. I was too far to decipher it. Just the glint of metal caught the moonlight." Carter's eyes darted nervously, as if the shadows cast were watchers, each more ominous than the last. Tentatively, Father Brown recalled the enigmatic locket found earlier. It felt heavier in his pocket, laden with the burden of potential. "Did you notice his method of speech? Accents, perhaps?" "No, just the weight of his presence," Carter lamented, burying his face in his hands. "All I could think of was that dim light dancing off some treachery." Father Brown considered this. The locket's allure had morphed into tangible danger. "You say there were no words exchanged, yet you depict exchanges of hostility. What if this shadowy figure meant to bargain?" Suddenly, another thought trembled in the depths of Father Brown's psyche, a haunting resonance between loyalty to home, family secrets suffocating in the vaults of history, and now this farmer's guilt-ridden revelation. It was enough to send shivers down his spine. Just as he was about to question Carter further, the tavern door swung wide open, admitting a gust of chilled air and an unexpected visitor, Finch. The relief on the detective's face was fleeting, yet vibrant, against the gloom. "Father Brown," he called, urgency wrapping his voice. "We may have stumbled upon something in the cellar." Father Brown glanced at Carter, who had visibly frozen in fear, suspicion blossoming across his distressed features. "I must attend to this matter at once," he whispered, rising to his feet. As he headed toward Finch, a sensation of foreboding washed over him like the mist creeping through the village streets. The weight of the farmer's confession pressed down. Shadows of suspicion swirled like dark clouds overhead. "We must be cautious, for what we uncover might choke the very fabric of this village," Finch murmured, his brow furrowed with shared apprehension. The two men strode through the rain-soaked path, each step propelling them toward an uncertain fate. Dread pulsed through Father Brown as his mind churned with questions, the pieces of the puzzle fitting together but not yet forming a picture. The memory of the cloaked figure lingered, a shroud of menace pulling the threads of this mystery tighter. And as they approached the cellar's threshold, darkness yawning before them, it became abundantly clear. Some secrets were never meant to see the light. A chilling thought seized him. Perhaps the fog enshrouding Kembleford contained more than mere raindrops. Perhaps it carried echoes of treachery, beckoning them into the depths. In the brittle silence, Father Brown felt the air holding its breath, waiting for the moment that would release the truth or bury them among the liars and shadows. Chapter 8. Shadows of Deceit. Father Brown stood at the threshold of the cellar, the damp air swirling around him with a sense of foreboding as Finch swung the door wide. The flickering candlelight revealed stone walls damp with age, while the damp smell of earth tinged with something acrid seemed to claw at the edges of his senses. Shadows loomed, stretching and warping beneath the tepid glow, whispering secrets long buried. "After you, Father," Finch said, his voice a mere whisper against the oppressive silence that enveloped the room. With a slight nod, Father Brown descended, an unexpected weight pressing upon his chest. Just as he set foot on the warped wooden floor, the sound of a distant thud echoed ominously, reverberating through the dark recesses. It was a sound that could belong to either fate's call or desperation's plea. As they moved deeper into the cellar, the air became cooler, laced with the musty remnants of forgotten histories. Father Brown's heart came alive with every step. He felt the pull of hidden truths, tangled and masked behind a veil of dread. "What did you find, Finch?" he asked, demeanor steady yet laced with urgency. Finch hesitated, digging into his pocket before producing a small, tarnished key. "I discovered it while searching through the shelves. It was hidden behind a false panel," he murmured, lifting it to the flickering light. The key glimmered with the promise of revelation, its antiquity a tangible connection to the mysteries that swirled relentlessly around Kembleford. "Interesting," Father Brown mused, examining it closely. "Do you suspect it opens something significant?" "I don't know yet," Finch replied, shifting from foot to foot as if caught between dread and excitement. "But there's a locked door at the far end, which might lead to something." With a determined stride, Father Brown beckoned Finch to follow as they made their way toward the farthest reaches of the cellar. Each beat of their hearts echoed in the arch stillness, creating a palpable tension that prickled at the back of Father Brown's mind. The sensation was heavy, a thick fog that threatened to suffocate. Was it fear or anticipation? Perhaps both. They reached the door, standing before it as Father Brown examined the lock. noticing the intricate carvings that adorned its surface, stories of eras past embedded in the wood. Drawing the key from Finch's hands, he inserted it into the lock, turning it cautiously. A muffled click resonated, and the door swung open on creaking hinges to reveal an expansive chamber, cloaked in cobwebs and whispering shadows. The sight took them aback. In the center, numerous crates were stacked haphazardly, dust motes swirling in the air as the candlelight flickered. Father Brown stepped tentatively into the room, his instinctual caution tempered by thirst for understanding. Scanning the space, he caught sight of an open crate, revealing items wrapped in faded velvet, a collection of jewelry belonging to Lady Pritchard, glimmering dully under the flickering light. Lady Pritchard's belongings, Finch remarked, brows knitting in concern. But why would they be hidden here? Desperation breeds deceit, Father Brown replied, his eyes narrowing as he sifted through the contents. Then something glimmered in the shadows. A locket, half covered with dust, caught his attention. He carefully retrieved it, holding it toward the light. The faint inscription upon it read, "To my beloved, there are truths only. The dark shall tell." "What do you mean?" Finch pressed, concern now etched across his face. "This locket belonged to Lady Pritchard," Father Brown conjectured, his mind racing through the implications. "There's treachery afoot. The significance of these items, they speak of a betrayal deeper than we fathomed." The palpable tension dissolved momentarily, replaced by a chill that settled uncomfortably in the air, thickening by the moment. Father Brown could feel it. The sudden dark tranquility had been disturbed. "Finch, have you noticed anything odd about the lady since her husband's death?" "Odd," Finch echoed. "Well, she does seem subdued, apprehensive even. She hardly leaves the manor now. Is it possible she knew about this?" Father Brown paused, replaying Farmer Carter's frantic revelations in his mind. One must ask, did Mr. Pritchard's dealings extend beyond mere debts? Perhaps he was in possession of something vital which others desired. Secrets hidden not only in this estate's vault, but intertwined in the fabrics of Kembleford itself. Just then, the cellar creaked with eerie resonance, and a faint sound floated through the air, a soft voice, barely audible, yet tinged with urgency. It seemed to emanate from a hidden corner. "Help me," the voice trembled, echoing through the darkness, causing Father Brown to exchange a startled glance with Finch. "It came from behind that wall," Finch pointed, his face the very picture of alarm. Father Brown approached, pressing a hand against the damp stone as the musky scent of earth surged forth, laden with mystery. "We can't ignore this," he said, determination fueling his voice. Growing closer, he saw a nearly imperceptible crack in the wall near the crates. "Finch, a crowbar would suffice. We must pry this open." They retrieved a tool from the storage, and with every exertion, the stone creaked and settled until finally, with a final heave, the section gave way with a shattering clamor, revealing a narrow passageway, cloaked in darkness. "Hello? Is anyone there?" Father Brown called, heart pounding with urgency. With each passing moment, hope and fear mingled, creating an anxious brew within him. A silhouette emerged, hesitant yet determined. "Father Brown," gasped a familiar voice, emerging from the passage, a face he neither expected nor trusted. It was Lady Pritchard, her eyes glistening with unshed tears, shadowed by betrayal. "Lady Pritchard," he questioned, "what?" "They've been watching. They know," she stammered, trembling yet fierce. "You must believe me, Father Brown. Betrayal runs deeper than Mr. Pritchard's death." As recognition dawned, so did a chilling certainty. Trust was a brittle thread in a world wrapped tightly in deceit. Before he could inquire further, however, the cellar door slammed shut behind them, enveloping them in darkness. A rush of adrenaline flooded Father Brown's senses as he realized they were not alone. The shadows were alive with malice and deceit, ready to engulf them all. In this dance of shadows, secrets awaited validation, but the elusive truth was still shrouded, teasing them from just out of reach. The echoes of the past and the present intertwined, and as the darkness surged, Father Brown knew every revelation beckoned another, drawing them closer to peril and promise in equal measure, hell-bent on unmasking the hidden treachery within the very heart of Kembleford. Chapter 9. The Final Trap. The tavern was alive with a dull hum of curiosity and suspicion. As Father Brown stood at its center, the gathered villagers shrouded in shadows, yet punctuated by shafts of candlelight flickering from the bar. The familiar scent of ale mingled with unease, a stark contrast to the soft rustle of fresh straw lingering outside the weathered entrance. Father Brown, though a man of the cloth, knew the heavy weight of life could rest upon the shoulders of any who dared admit to their roles in the tangled web they were poised to confront. He surveyed the crowd before him, noting the expectant glances. Wives whispered to husbands, and friends exchanged furtive looks, as though the pub itself might draw breath, soon to exhale the truth. "Ladies and gentlemen of Kembleford," he began, steadying his voice to pierce through the murmurs. "We stand at a precipice today, a juncture where paranoia meets revelation and betrayal unfurls its cruel tendrils. Get on with it." "Father!" a voice called out, thick with impatience, belonging to Carter, the farmer whose heavy secrets had set this calamity in motion. The tavern fell silent, all eyes now focused intently on the priest. The sense of danger pulsated in the air. It was no longer simply a matter of a murder, but rather the question of a community's faith in one another. As the final vestiges of evening light began to seep away, Father Brown felt a shiver uncoil down his spine. Earlier that day, he had uncovered a checkered past, a note hidden among Lady Pritchard's belongings, encrypted in haste but laden with meaning. The truth lies with the locket. This, and a strand of accusations floating like shadows, had brought him here to stir the depths of Kembleford's soul, to expose the vile truth lurking in its cozy veneer. "Tonight," he continued, his voice unwavering, "we will unmask the one who orchestrated the web of deceit. For too long, the shadows of betrayal have stretched across this village, hidden beneath smiles and polite nods." He gestured, and Finch stepped forward, brandishing the tarnished locket. "This item, belonging to Lady Pritchard, is a key. It holds a mystery, tying our fates together in ways we have yet to reckon." "Enough of this nonsense!" Finch's annoyance transformed into cold fury, cutting through the tension in the air. "Do you dare implicate Lady Pritchard? She knew nothing of her husband's doings." "Didn't she?" Father Brown replied, his eyes glinting with certainty. "Consider this. The locket bears the inscription, 'There are truths only the dark shall tell.' The dark of the cellar, the dark of betrayal. Could it not be that she held on to secrets her husband had buried, secrets some desperately wished to unveil? A combination of incredulity and intrigue rippled through the audience. The room shrank around them, tension cutting deeper with every passing moment. "I have found words that speak louder than actions," Father Brown said, absently fingering the locket. now a focal point of the evening. Yet, I must hear one more perspective tonight. Lady Pritchard, if you would grace us with your presence. There was a collective gasp as Lady Pritchard stepped forward, her shadow merging with that of the flickering candles. Dressed in mournful black, with eyes haunted by secrets, she cast a wary glance around the room, sensing something ethereal yet palpable in the air. I was told I might find solace here, she stammered, her delicate frame trembling against the charged atmosphere. But what torment is this? Solace lies in truth, dear lady, Father Brown urged, yet the line between truth and deception is perilously thin. Was your husband's death merely an accident or a violent consequence of dark dealings? Who stands to gain from his demise? She recoiled, her grief apparent, but quickly replaced by a resolute fire within her gaze. I lost the only man I loved. I sought to shield myself from the untold burdens of his secrets. He carried debts, dealings which I thought I could manage, but I thought I married an honest man. Then who, I wonder, has been spinning tales of deceit? Who might seek to benefit from your misfortune? The room groaned under the weight of unanswered questions, eyes darting from one villager to another, their faces fresh canvases of concern. Enough of these insinuations, Finch interjected, fists clenched. You speak of treachery, yet in your eagerness to accuse others, perhaps you hide your own secrets. That's quite enough, Finch, Father Brown directed firmly. You mistake intention for malevolence. A sudden flash of determination rippled through him. It was time to tighten the noose around the true culprit's narrative. Let us piece together what we know. For several moments, murmurs punctuated the air as villagers recalled past interactions, unfurling motives with palpable tension. Finger-pointing and half-formed accusations spun faster than cobwebs, each villager illuminating their former connections with Mr. Pritchard. As the night deepened, a thread of truth began to weave itself into a perilous tapestry. Lady Pritchard hesitated, then offered a last, haunting detail. There was someone, a shady man. Her voice tremored. He approached Robert often, whispering strange things about family legacies and debts owed to the dark. Don't say, Carter interrupted, suddenly pale, recollections clouding his countenance. You... Just then, a heavy knock echoed through the tavern's creaky door, breaking the spell of concentration wrapping the room. As Finch opened the door, a figure loomed, almost spectral beneath the dim light. It was a villager, breathless and disheveled. Father, you must come quickly. There's been another incident. The tavern gasped in unison as they absorbed the dread vibrating through the atmosphere. Father Brown's mind raced, instinctively knowing the danger had not waned, but thickened with the darkest threads. We shall not delay. Gather your strength, my friends. The entanglements of this mystery are not yet unraveled, but they shall surely lead us deeper still. Just as he turned to follow the villager out into the swirling mist, one final glance back revealed something unmistakable, a flash of guilt written on Finch's face. The air thickened, carrying nothing but a heavy silence and the promise of more revelations to come. Whatever lay ahead, Father Brown felt certain of this. The final trap was laid, but the true nature of the hunter and the hunted remained cloaked in shadows, poised to unveil itself in a single haunting moment. Chapter 10. Father Brown's Revelation. The air in Kembleford was thick with a foreboding mist, the kind that snaked through the gnarled trees like secrets whispered amongst the dead. As Father Brown stepped into the churchyard, the damp earth squelched underfoot, each step resonating like a portent of doom. He paused to absorb the surroundings, graves aged with time, each one a silent testament to lives once vibrant, now buried beneath layers of history. This place, so often a sanctuary, now felt weighed down by the heavy pall of unrest cloaking the village. His hands folded beneath the sleeves of his priestly robe, he recalled that jagged conversation in the tavern, an assemblage of suspicion and accusation that had seared through the evening. The muffled whispers of the villagers lingered like shadows as Father Brown retraced his thoughts. Lady Pritchard's heartbreak, Finch's tension, and Carter's apprehension circled like vultures overhead. He understood that lurking behind each polite facade hid the intricate threads of conspiracy, and what he had seen in Finch's eyes, something more than guilt, sparked a new resolve. Just then, the clang of the church bell echoed sharply, startling the crows roosting overhead. It was both a clarion call and a reminder that time was of the essence. With determination pushing him onward, Father Brown made his way toward the manor, its silhouette a dark bruise against the luminous pallor of the evening sky. As he approached, the ancient stone structure loomed larger, casting long shadows that seemed to swallow the light. A suspenseful crack of thunder rolled ominously in the distance, sending a shiver down his spine. He remembered Lady Pritchard's pleading eyes, the desperate appeal for trust, weighed against the shifting sands of deception that shrouded them all. He stepped through the heavy wooden door, which creaked open like a reluctant participant in a dark play. The interior was stifling, filled with the scent of aged wood and distant secrets. Finch stood by the hearth, the flames flickering shadows across his grim face, eyes darting nervously as Father Brown approached. "Father, what do you wish to discuss?" Finch's voice trembled slightly, a crack in the stone mask he wore. "Finch, I need to understand why you were so agitated by Lady Pritchard's presence in the tavern," Father Brown stated, his gaze unwavering. "You seemed quick to defend her, yet I cannot shake the feeling that it runs deeper than you allow." Finch opened his mouth to protest, but faltered, the flickering firelight catching the sheen of a bead of sweat rolling down his temple. "She's grieving. You can't blame her for wanting to shield herself from accusations that tarnish her husband's legacy." "Legacy indeed," Father Brown mused, tilting his head. "Or perhaps a legacy of corruption masked as familial duty. What do you know?" Finch tensed, and for a fleeting moment, Father Brown glimpsed something, the barest flicker of vulnerability, before Finch wove back together his carefully constructed persona. "You cannot imply—" "I am implying much, Finch," Father Brown interrupted, stepping closer, his voice dipped in low intensity. "It was you who mentioned debts in the tavern. Whose debts were you speaking of? Was it those of Mr. Pritchard or yours?" Finch's countenance shifted, as if the very atmosphere thickened. "Think carefully," Father Brown pressed, keenly aware of the way the tension coiled between them. "You spoke of the shady man who approached Pritchard, but tell me, did you ever meet him? Did you—" As if in answer to his probing, a chorus of footsteps reached the hallway, and Lady Pritchard entered, her veil slipping from her hair with a mournful semblance of grace. "You must stop this, Father," she implored, her voice trembling yet steely. "These accusations are unfounded. My husband's death was cruelly surprised. It is we who are victims of fate, not traitors." Father Brown observed her closely, searching for signs that only truth could unveil. "No one is calling you a traitor, Lady Pritchard. But I need clarity. Secrets can be corrosive. Who stands to gain from Robert's demise? Finch seems to know more than he reveals, especially regarding debts that threaten to unravel our very community. Just then, a soft knock echoed through the hallway, interrupting the brewing storm of conversation. A young woman entered, her features pale with anxiety, clutching a crumpled letter tightly between her fingers. Without preamble, she thrust it towards Lady Pritchard. "I found this in the cupboard while cleaning. It's from your husband." Lady Pritchard's visage drained of colour, and the letter quivered as she held it aloft. "No, it cannot be." "May I see it?" Father Brown inquired gently, and she nodded, still gazing at the letter with disbelief. He carefully unfolded the paper, the handwriting sharp yet frantic, bleeding emotion. In that moment, a cold realization trickled through him as he read aloud the words, "I have seen their masks fall, and their true intentions revealed. The locket holds more than memories. It is a key to a legacy of darkness that shall ensnare us all." His voice resonated against the stone walls, wrapping the atmosphere in an eerie silence. He was afraid, but fear of whom or what? Lady Pritchard staggered, nearly collapsing against the mantel. "No, he was protecting me." "Protecting you, or protecting himself?" Father Brown posited, sensing the fragility of the emotional storm brewing. "This locket you hold, the inscriptions, the debts, the shadowy dealings, may unravel the very roots of this matter. But the murderer waits just beyond our vision, shrouded in innocence." Suddenly, a chilling wind swept through the room, extinguishing the candles with a violent gust. In the enveloping darkness, Father Brown felt the shadows shift, alive with danger, references swirling like ghosts from the past seeking vengeance. The flicker of footsteps echoed far down the hall. Then silence fell heavily. Something was hidden round the corner, veiled in layers of deception that threatened to suffocate. Timber boards creaked ominously, as if denouncing the truth woven in deceit. Finch stepped back, his earlier bravado faltering. "I know nothing of it. I swear it." "Is that so?" Father Brown turned, his resolve solidifying. "Then let us discover what lies beneath these masks, into the depth of secrets loved and lost. But mark my words, we are not alone in this, and evil wears the kindest smiles." And just as he uttered the words, a distant scream shattered the silence, terror rippling through the manor, heralding fresh turmoil that would catapult them deeper into the enigma. Father Brown's heart raced, knowing the shadows they navigated concealed more than mere truths. They beckoned with a haunting promise of danger that was yet unheard. The hunter's game was afoot, and in this dance of life and death, someone would soon emerge from anonymity, clutching vengeance tightly to their heart. Chapter 11. The Ultimate Deception. The atmosphere in Kembleford was stifling, heavy with the dampness of a lingering mist that coiled around the narrow streets and twisted alleyways. Father Brown stood at the entrance of the manor, heart pounding in sync with the cries still echoing off the stone walls. The scream had been unlike any he had heard before, a fracture of despair that resonated with the guilty whispers of the past. He took a deep breath, steeling himself for the truth that awaited him. Inside, the flickering candlelight danced upon the walls, casting ominous shadows that seemed to stretch and twist, eager to conceal the secrets lurking within. Finch hovered near the hearth, his visage pale and drawn, while Lady Pritchard remained at the mantel, clutching the crumpled letter to her chest, as if it were a shield against the unraveling world around her. Father Brown approached, his gaze sharpened by the grave sense of urgency. He needed to cut through the tension like a knife, through the thick veil of fog outside. "Finch, you heard that scream?" Father Brown prompted, his voice calm yet probing. "What do you know about it?" "Nothing, it was just—" Finch stammered, his breath hitching in his throat. "An accident, perhaps? Or a cruel jest?" He averted his eyes, flinching under Father Brown's scrutiny. "A jest would require humor, Finch," Father Brown replied, moving closer. "And fear is no laughter. Lady Pritchard, you must tell us if you recognize anything in that letter you hold." With a shake of her head, Lady Pritchard faltered, her resolve stripped away by desperation. "It speaks of legacies, dark legacies. But if Robert was speaking of debts, he must also have known something dreadful lay ahead. Something that might implicate those nearby," Father Brown pressed, his mind racing through the possibilities. "You said he was acting strangely, paranoid even." Yes, she replied, her voice trembling. "He was plagued by his fears of shadows lurking in the corners of his family history. I never believed—" "Of course not," Finch cut in, voice strained. "He was a good man, even if he was involved with—" "Even if he was involved with whom?" Father Brown interrupted, diverting his attention toward Finch. The threat and intensity in the room coalesced as the half-finished puzzles danced vividly in his mind. "You knew about these dealings, didn't you? You hinted at debts before." Finch's face fell darker, revealing a flicker of unhidden panic. "You do not understand. There are forces at play that are bigger than all of us, Father." "Forces?" Father Brown echoed, his mind collating the scattered pieces of the sinister picture that lay before him. "And what does that entail? Trusting your judgment over the life of a man." Just then, amid the tension that crackled in the space, a loud crash echoed from the rear of the house, sending a shudder through them all. Father Brown looked toward the darkness, leading to the back of the manor, heart quickening. "Stay here," he ordered, determination hardening as he moved toward the source. Navigating through the dimly lit corridor felt like traversing through a dream, shaded by dread. Gnarled shadows beckoned from every corner, and the wood beneath him creaked with warnings of long-buried secrets. Reaching the door, he pushed it open and peered inside. His sharp eyes landed on the body sprawled on the ground, a villager gasping for breath, blood pooling beneath him in a gruesome testament of ferocity. Father Brown knelt beside him, feeling the stillness. Ivory, a local farmer, known for his good-natured spirit. "What happened?" he demanded urgently, taking in the wide, terrified gaze of the man. "Father," he gasped, I overheard something about Robert's debts and a wager that sealed fates. The man who brought trouble, someone here." His words broke off into a choked silence. Father Brown glanced up, overtaken by an instinctive understanding born of desperation. A dark realization hardened within him as he recalled the details swirling like mist in his thoughts. "Tell me." "The locket," he pressed, shaking the man gently. "The locket and the dealings. Who stands to gain?" Ivory's eyes flickered with recognition. Then suddenly, dread washed over his face as he went limp. The ember of life had extinguished before Father Brown's observant gaze, leaving behind a cold arrangement of blood and fate. He stood abruptly, his mind racing. He needed the truth before darkness consumed more innocent lives. Rushing back to the unsettling fervor of the hearth, he found Finch and Lady Pritchard in hushed disarray. "We must gather the villagers," he commanded with authority. Something far more sinister is unraveling, where the stakes are life and death. Betrayal waits in the guise of familiarity. The door creaked open, flooding the room with the chill of an impending storm. A shadowy figure emerged, and Father Brown's instincts bristled. It was Carter, the tavern keeper, wild-haired and breathless, eyes wide with palpable fear that resonated like a cable snapping tight with tension. "Father, I heard screaming. I sensed something amiss." "Indeed," Father Brown replied, the pieces beginning to coalesce harmoniously in his mind. "And what of the shady man Lady Pritchard mentioned? It seems we have more to uncover than mere suspicions." Carter stepped back, his features clouded with guilt. "That's just it. I know who he is. I worked for him. Was it for the debts? In Kembleford, nothing is but what it seems," Father Brown declared, locking his sharp gaze onto Finch. "And your role in concealing this deception might reveal more than you are ready to confront." Before another word could escape, a clap of thunder rolled through the clouds, filling the room with a menacing rumble, shaking foundations. The lamp flickered dangerously, plunging them into semi-darkness. But amidst the chaos, Father Brown's gaze shot to the letter, still clutched in Lady Pritchard's hands, a revelation dawning upon him. "And the locket," he repeated, louder, focusing once again on the key that held the tangled past. "Where is it? For it may prove our salvation or our doom. You must find it before time runs out." In the darkness, fear felt tangible, thickening the air around them. And as Father Brown stood at the precipice of revelation, a final echo of unease pierced through it all. Someone was watching, someone who held the ultimate power, the puppet master of this grim game. The deception unraveling before him whispered of truth yet untold, and in that very moment he knew they were running out of time. As the storm raged outside, its fury mirrored the chaos within, and the hunt was on, but all paths led back to the locket, a small symbol of the legacy that had turned deadly. Each truth unveiled promised more peril, and Father Brown's resolve sharpened into something ironclad. The ultimate deception would soon be laid bare, and he would see it through to the end. Chapter 12. The Unveiling of Truth. The flickering candlelight yielded to the encroaching darkness as Father Brown stood at the threshold, his eyes darting across the shadows that quivered in response to the gusts of the storm outside. The air was thick with tension, each breath heavy with anticipation as he stared into the muted faces of Finch, Lady Pritchard, and Carter. Their expressions mirrored the chaos consuming the manor, a reflection of the storm both inside and out, chaotic, wild, and screaming for resolution. "Time is not on our side," he intoned, a simmering urgency lacing his voice. "We must uncover the truth before it consumes another life." The room, already steeped in the miasma of dread and uncertainty, felt even colder, a premonition clawing through his veins. Finch shook as he clutched the mantle, his voice rising. "But Father, with every revelation, we reveal deeper betrayals. Is it worth the cost?" "Justice is seldom easy," Father Brown replied, allowing the weight of his understanding to settle. "But truth is the cradle of hope, even when cloaked in deception." Lady Pritchard's eyes were glassy with fear, clutching her letter to her chest like a talisman. "They say the past is dead, but it walks among us, a spectre that consumes those who refuse to honor the truth." "Then let us bring that spectre to light," Father Brown urged. "We must find the locket. It may hold the key not just to Robert's legacy, but to our very lives. As Finch fidgeted and cast furtive glances, an echo rattled through the manor, a chilling reminder of the chaos outside. "A wager sealed fates," Carter whispered, his voice hoarse, breaking their mounting tension. "I heard whispers of a bet that changed the tide." Robert was in deep with someone dangerous, a man of debts, of games. "Who is this man?" Father Brown demanded, his sharp eyes narrowing. "And what part do you play, Finch?" I merely acted as an intermediary," Finch stammered, his facade crumbling to reveal his inner turmoil. "Robert sought to escape his debts, to save us all from a dark fate. He was desperate. He didn't realize who he was dealing with." Suddenly, Father Brown caught movement through the cracked window. Shadows danced outside as the wind howled a chilling forewarning. Outside, his voice cut through the growing tension. "We need to investigate. Perhaps the answers lie with those lurking in the veil of night. Lady Pritchard, you stay here with Carter." "Why me?" she protested, trembling. "Because you have a role to play. One I cannot yet discern," he replied, returning her gaze with unwavering resolve. "I shall return shortly." He stepped outside, the mist-enveloped village creeping into his bones. The cobbled streets glistened under the sporadic flashes of lightning, illuminating the fine drizzle of rain that dampened the air. The scent of wet earth was invigorating, filling him with purpose as he navigated towards the churchyard, where shadowy figures whispered among the gravestones, secrets playing like a game of cat and mouse. A figure emerged from the veil of fog, an unmistakable silhouette. Carter followed cautiously. "Father," he hissed, his voice a trembling whisper, "what if it isn't the locket they seek?" "Which leads us to question what they truly desire," Father Brown mused, eyes scanning the horizon. "Desperation often births treachery." As they approached the church doors, he could hear muffled voices inside, low and urgent. Peering through the stained glass, he discerned the well-known form of the village blacksmith, Thomas, conversing with a stranger cloaked in shadows. The tension crackled like static in the air. "Can you hear that?" Father Brown asked Carter, moving back into the shroud of darkness. "Isn't that what was said to be the man of debts?" Carter whispered, watching as the two men exchanged furtive gestures, glancing back towards the village before retreating. Father Brown rubbed his chin thoughtfully. "Let's listen. There may be truths here that unfold if we remain in the shadows." The murmurs became clearer. "You can't keep hiding it, Thomas," the stranger hissed, the timbre of his voice like a coiled spring, ready to snap. "The stakes are too high. If they find out—" "What if she discovers the truth?" Thomas interrupted, fear seeping through his bravado. "We'll both be damned." Father Brown, piecing the fragments of fear and loyalty together, laughed softly to himself. Hidden motives danced around him like ink spills upon parchment. "The locket connects all these threads," he mused to Carter before emerging from their concealment. "Gentlemen," both men snapped around, shock washing over their faces. "Father Brown, what are you doing here?" "I was eavesdropping, as one does when seeking the truth." He stepped forward, the electrifying tension in the air palpable. "It appears matters have reached a critical juncture." Both men exchanged glances, filled with dread, but Thomas unexpectedly straightened. "I'm not afraid of you, Father. What you don't understand, this is a game of survival. What happened to Robert was inextricably linked to his choices," Father Brown pieced together, "linked to debts that may lead to a shrouded figure, perhaps the very man you wagered against. You wish to protect yourself and Lady Pritchard? Yes, Thomas admitted, the resolve in his voice faltering. She doesn't know. Doesn't know what? Father Brown pressed, sensing the rich threads of deception unraveling around them. Just then, a spark of recognition ignited the air. A ghostly silhouette emerged from the mist, holding a familiar object. I believe I have found this, the figure called with an air of authority. A cold chill swept through Father Brown as he recognized the glint of the locket dangling ominously from the figure's finger. Who are you to wield such power? Father Brown summoned his courage as the clouds erupted above, revealing the newcomer's face, just as his knees threatened to buckle beneath him. The truth was unveiled, but the depth of the impending betrayal remained cloaked in shadows, beckoning darkness that was yet to be unleashed. The locket hung suspended in the air, a token both of legacy and doom, a revelation that promised to shatter the fragile trust within this world. As the figure stepped into the flickering light, the words danced on Father Brown's lips. No, it can't be. In that instant, the storm raged around them, echoes of the past, roaring to life, and the stakes of this deadly game threatened to topple the realm of Kembleford into chaos anew. The resolution loomed just beyond reach, and the haunting promise of vengeance surged into the night.